Unbelievably Bulgarian, a play on the Iron Mind documentary Unbelievable Bulgarians that in part made the Bulgarian system so popular. And there's no other way to describe it. This training session is unbelievably Bulgarian, rather than unbelievable Bulgarians, because the lifting in this video, while amazing of course, more shows off the ineffable feel of what Bulgarian training really is. The attitude to heavy weights, the lack of respect shown to usual warm-ups or jumps in weight, the rough and ready technique of those forged by heavy singles. And before we get into it, if anyone wants a pair of our fast release house straps, the link is down below. Fast shipping, easy returns, super strong Kevlar stitch straps. For those who don't know, the Bulgarians in the 80s, under the tutelage of Ivan Abadjiev, became the most successful country in the sport at the time, rising above the Soviet Union, all the while maxing out multiple times a day. And there are many, many versions of what Bulgarian is based on stories passed on and altered over time. But I've now interviewed several athletes from that team, including world record holder and 3-time world champion Alexander Varbanov, and world record holder and 2-time world champion Stefan Botev. And so I've got a pretty good sense of their exact training. 8 to 10 hours per day, 3 different sessions, an average for 110 kilo Botev at least of 70 tons a day. Squat, snatch, clean and jerk, squat, lunge. Snatch, clean and jerk, squat, break. And then snatch or clean and jerk, squat, done. And each exercise you take maximal attempts of around 7 times. So that's close to 50 to 60 maximum singles every single day. And this type of exposure to maximal weights either requires or at least creates a reckless abandon for heavy lifts. Little emotional attachment is warranted for a heavy single because you do them so frequently. You've shaken hands with the heavy weights so frequently that they become, as John Brose said, old friends. And this style of training also attracts a certain type of person, a person with a particular temperament, one perhaps of more aggression, more fight than the average person, someone who is willing to train hard, all the time, forever. And you can see that in the way that Hristo Hristov trains. It's the same with his teammate Carlos Nassar, who on this day, at the age of 17, set a new world record clean and jerk of 208 kilos. And he did it with very little state arousal. It looked like, and I guess it was, just one of many heavy clean and jerk attempts he'd taken over the last week, month, and years of training. Hristo takes jumps that only the biggest super heavies would take. 70 to 110 kilos in the snatch. He looks, if anything, bored or unimpressed by the weight on the bar, like he's somewhere better to be. He straps up, lifts, sits down, mind elsewhere. He's unbelievably Bulgarian in this way. The thing with the Bulgarian system is that it can't just be replicated in any other country. Systems of training are specific to the place, culture, training logic, and technology available at the time. The brutality of the Bulgarian system could only have been developed in a place and a time where a coach had significant power over an athlete, or where an athlete's freedom to do anything else was limited. In the UK or the USA, a coach would simply not be able to push an athlete so hard, and an athlete just wouldn't take it. They would leave. They wouldn't take the 50 maximal attempts per day. The culture of PED use that went along with the Bulgarian system back in the 80s is also something that might not fly to the same degree now. Of course, drugs still play a powerful under-the-table role in the sport of weightlifting, but the semi-abusive relationship between Abadjiev and his athletes by way of drug pressure wouldn't come close to working today. Stories of Abadjiev, some included in the Greatest Weightlifters of All Time book, from the mouths of the athletes themselves, talk of the forcing of drugs even against the will of the athlete. Athletes trained to maintain their spot on the A-team in order to, and this is a direct quote, provide milk for their children. So much of what made this Bulgarian system successful at the time comes down to the power dynamic between the athlete and the coach, the culture, the state of the country at the time, the drug use, the camaraderie, competitiveness, and aggression of the athletes, not just the program. Training systems are situational. Taking the Bulgarian program out of the system and dropping it in another country and giving it a go, ignoring the drug use, the lack of competition, or the lack of external societal pressures that by brute force drove the system to be successful, is like cutting off a working nose from a face, sticking it on a table and expecting the table to breathe. In this day and age, athletes like you and me have an enormous number of variables that impact training in a way the controlled lives of the Bulgarian or Soviets didn't. In the past, and today in some highly advanced and controlling systems, programs can be written out months in advance because all variables are accounted for. But that's not the case now, which is why auto-regulation has become such a dominant method of prescribing stress. A new training system, something individualized and constantly adapting, is needed to account for such lifestyles. Something not unbelievably Bulgarian. To learn how weightlifting changes forever this April, head to the link in the description or to weightliftinghouse.com/secret for this week's hint. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and grab a pair of the house straps.